Hello everyone, Coach Dave here, and it was a busy week for sim racing updates. Actually, it's been a busy couple of weeks because recently there was also the release of iRacing, but the new tire models and stuff like that. But today we're going to focus on ACC, their 1.2 update, which I have driven prior to the actual update itself, and I can say this game continues to get better. As you can see there, I did the mother of all sins at the start of the race. That's something that you could learn from a GT3 driver called Daniel Kalwitz. He seemed to have mastered that in the German ADAC GT Masters Championship. So there it's all about getting the timing of the green lights right and anticipating it before everyone else, leaving a bit of a gap to the person in front. Seems to work. Anyway, back to the case in point here. This latest update includes the ability to edit liveries, which I'm not going to cover in this video. I just want to talk about one specific thing, and that is a new physics element that they've included in the game called, which they are terming body flex. Basically, or chassis flex. Now basically what this means is, independent of the movement that you get from your suspension and damping, the chassis itself is also put through a lot of force and does tend to show or exhibit a little bit of flexibility as you go through corners. Where you can really see effects of this is in direction changes, hitting heavy curbs, and also one or two high-speed corners on tracks like Spa, which we'll get to in a moment. So I wanted to choose Misano and Spa as my two demonstration tracks around here, or for this video rather, just to talk about where you would see that kind of flex and how you could set up the car accordingly. So going through here into turn 1, because of the direction changes and the heavy curb usage, in real life we do actually experience quite a lot of movement from the chassis through there, and it's, to be honest with you, it's actually quite difficult to tell when you have chassis flex versus suspension or damping or whatever that's too soft. But generally when you start to tweak the roll bars in your car, this could usually be related to the chassis itself and the transfer of the weight. As I go a little bit wide there, apologies for that, the transfer of the weight of the car and how it's affecting the dynamics going through a corner. So we're going to cut to Spa here, and this is probably where you could feel or should feel the chassis flex the most. In particular, corners like Eau Rouge and Blanchimard are where you can feel it in the Ferrari. Now, I haven't driven the other cars in the game yet with this latest update. To be honest with you, I always focus on driving the Ferrari in ACC because it's the one that I'm more familiar with. I have driven the Lamborghini and the Mercedes and the Bentley actually before in real life, but not enough to give you the most accurate feedback in terms of realism and handling. So at Spa, when you go through Eau Rouge and you have a lot of understeer, or you have a lot of steering input rather, as you approach the right-hander through Eau Rouge and going towards Raidillon, you will start to feel the car move or flex quite a lot over the bumps, and this usually is not related to your suspension, but rather where your roll bars are, how many packers you have in the car, and essentially the chassis flex. Now, usually when a game developer says that they've implemented chassis flex, I think to myself, well, how are you going to feel that? But to my surprise, in ACC, I really could feel it. It is very subtle, and as I've explained, even in real life, it's very difficult to tell, and it's not something that when we come in from a session, we say, oh, the chassis is flexing a lot. That's not what we say at all. But what we will sometimes comment on is how the weight is transferring through the car, and whether or not this is generating a snap feeling in snap oversteer or some kind of like understeer. If the car is too stiff, with the roll bars, you could sometimes get quite a bit of chronic understeer going into a corner. However, if you go through Eau Rouge in real life and the roll bars are too soft, then you get this weird sort of wallowing effect in the car, which can be a bit disconcerting and sometimes will make Eau Rouge quite a scary corner. Now, sometimes you can have a soft car for better tire wear, but it makes these high-speed corners a bit more leery because the car is less stable. Another corner where you can experience it is going through 130R in the Ferrari at Suzuka if your rear damping is a bit too soft. So going through there, and you could actually see it slightly in the video, the onboard video that I just had there. There was a little bit of movement through the car, and the cool thing is, and what I was trying to get to, is that you can actually feel this through the force feedback in the game. And that's what I was not expecting. I was expecting to see something, and we'll see some level bit more of unpredictability in the handling and so on. But what I wasn't expecting to feel was a sort of the force that we get to experience in real life through the steering when we go through Eau Rouge. And it is a steering thing. It's not necessarily through the seat or anything like that, because what's happening is that the wheels are actually moving independently from each other, and that transfers through the steering wheel and gives you this sort of strange effect when you're trying to take Eau Rouge flat, which is very subtle, but it is there. And the stiffer you go with your car, the better the high-speed corners become, the more stable they become, and the less of that disconcerting movement you get through the wheel. So I do think that this is a pretty good update for Assetto Corsa Competizione, and it's nice to see that they're continuing to pour so much effort into the physics of this game and make such massive leaps just overall with the simulator. I love, that their baseline was already pretty good, but as you know, before the previous tire model update, there were some issues where a lot of drivers were concerned about, including real life drivers, just that sort of aggressiveness when you're touching curbs. But each release that's coming out, they are inching closer and closer to a much more realistic simulator for GT3 cars, which I really appreciate. I still do have some criticisms about the game. I wish that their online element was a bit more comprehensive and addictive. I think this is lacking, or this is an element of the sim that is really lacking, and in my opinion really needs to be addressed in future updates. For example, I would have preferred if time was spent on the online element and daily races, or weekly races rather, instead of the livery editor, which is still a really cool update. But in terms of what I want as a gamer, I would have preferred the online element to be more comprehensively worked on, as opposed to the livery editor, which is fun, but for me that's not a priority. I know for many of you, and especially for the esports teams, this will be a massive benefit, because you can finally race online with your own liveries, and I'm fully aware that will help you with sponsorship and stuff like that. But at the same time, it would be cool if the casual sim racer like myself could be able to log into ACC, click on weekly races or daily races like I do in iRacing and like I do in GT Sport, and just have a little race with mates, or with some of the other characters online that I've started to develop relationships with, in terms of sharing tips, sharing setups, and just having like something more to discuss around the game. Because at the moment, even though I play ACC almost every time I'm at home, almost every day, it's still missing. What I would do at the moment is, if I know it and I'm going to test at a certain track, I open ACC, I do some laps around there, but after about 30 minutes or so, I want to do some racing, and I end up opening iRacing or GT Sport for that. So it would be nice to, say, dedicate much more time to this game, but I know that the guys are putting in a ton of effort. As you can see here, this kind of detail is just things that you want to see from sim racing developers, and I'm pretty sure that in the future we're going to get more cool updates. I know, for example, that they are teasing the Intercontinental stuff. I saw it at Kyalami, and my brother was so addicted to the game, because he hasn't actually played ACC, that he missed my qualifying because he was trying to do laps around Kyalami. So that's credit to the guys there. The virtual world was much more addictive than what was going on track. Anyway, hope you found this video useful. Download the latest version on Steam, I think. And thank you very much to my Patreon members, and also to my channel sponsors. Until the next one, I'll catch you around the next lap. Cheers.